Hello and good evening. Welcome back to Reviving Discourse. This will be episode 4. Today is November 20th, 2019. You wincing over there, Alex? You all right?
Yeah, thanks for having me back. I wasn't sure you would after the flu. Sorry, recovering from something.
That's all right. You were sick last week.
Yeah.
Well, so let's see. What did we miss? I know anything recent happened that you could think of in current events, or have you just been too busy?
The impeachment hearings.
Uh,
I've been listening to those on NPR whenever I get a chance to.
so how about that? They've actually moved the hearings for the first time in what has it been 3 years? What dirt they got on him on President
Well,
Donald Trump?
there was the part that I heard. I need to look all this up. Darn it. There was for just to start at the very beginning for people that don't know, there was an accusation of somebody who knew what they were talking about. That the president of the United States did a quid pro quo suggestion with Ukrainian leadership
Mm-hmm.
in order to say, "Hey, we're not going to give you funding for to assist you in this time of your need unless you were to investigate Biden's nephew." I want to say it's all pretty convoluted, and I
I, yeah, I read the transcript. Is something new out from that, or are they just going off of what the transcript said?
you read the whole transcript.
Mm-hmm.
Good, good, good. What did you think of that?
I didn't feel like it was quid pro quo at all. I thought it was just the way the president talks.
Exactly, and that's I think is the main goal is to get him like people are pretty convinced that you shouldn't be able to talk that way if you're the president. You know,
Really?
yeah, I think so. I think that's the main problem is that like people like the way that you say it is wrong.
I see. Okay. Well, so that's enough to impeach a guy. All right. Fair enough. Well, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation that I think that we should have because I know that you disagree with me. Hard stance disagree.
Yeah.
I don't think that minimum wage should be increased at all.
Okay. Yeah, I remember disagreeing with you about that vaguely. Yeah.
Vaguely.
Uh, I what so the let's get some stuff on the table real quick. Minimum
Okay.
wage right now, yay or
Mhm.
nay?
Uh, I think it might be too high.
Might be too high. Oh, oh my gosh. Okay. And what leads you to believe that the minimum wage might be too high?
Uh, I think that minimum wage hurts small business in a way that forces them to pay something that they might not be able to afford, so they can't afford to hire employees, for instance.
Yeah, that's a good argument. I mean,
It
I disagree with it, but it's a good argument
okay.
because
What do you say then?
well, you're saying that this minimum wage hurts a small business because they can't afford to pay people as much as say a larger business would be able to,
Yeah.
right? So, it's a good argument because it's I guess it's technically true. I don't know the logistics of opening a small business myself. I've never tried to do anything like that, but I have to assume that your profit margin if you think that they can increase their profit margin by not paying their workers as much, then the sacrifice has to come from somewhere, right?
What do you mean?
Like where is this little business that doesn't have that much expendable profit in the first place going to cut corners so that they can pay their employees more? That's why it would be a good argument, right?
Okay. Yeah. Are you arguing for me now?
I was just saying why I think it's a good argument. But the reason that I disagree with it is because I think that small businesses, and I don't know what I'm going to base this on, but I think that this minimum wage is basically designed to attack larger businesses that
To
are hurting
attack?
people. Yeah, yeah. I think it's not. I think it's more orchestrated than just across the board. This is how it should be because it's fair. I think that this is like almost like reparations for companies getting away with not giving their workers fair wages for a long time. And
I,
as our economy changes, what's fair, quote unquote, might evolve and change too.
right. I think that uh, our economic situation right now is forcing, or well, is making it so that people can be taken advantage of like that. So let me throw McDonald's on the table right now. Where they make billions of dollars a year, right?
I assume
Um,
so. Yeah.
so here, McDonald's. What is it? What's it called when you check on a corporation's income? Uh,
I don't know.
here I'll
Net
just
worth.
fiscal year.
Mm.
Uh, so they make an annual earnings of 22 billion a year, roughly.
Wow.
So is that all profit? No, that's how much money they make. That's how much money they take in, right?
Mhm.
So they're making that much money. How many employees do they have though? Employee count, McDonald's. They have 375,000 employees.
Oh,
So that's a lot. Let's go ahead and say 3/4 of them are uh mm, like
front lines.
yeah are working at the store in non management positions. That gives us
Hmm.
roughly 190,000 employees who are there most likely on minimum wage. So that means that they are paying out uh $55 million a week if all of these people are full time, which they're not. They're mostly part time. But and that's a minimum wage of $7.25. So with that being said, these people are being paid. They're paying out $2.2 billion in labor at minimum wage right there,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of money. Uh, hmm. So if they doubled that, right? If they made minimum wage $14.50, that's $2 billion, right? That's
Wow.
actually that's a good question. So if minimum wage were increased, do you think they'd cut hours? Like they'd
Like
make it
the
so
big, powerful, shady corporations.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think
100%.
they would.
Hmm.
But then you'd have to make laws that they couldn't do that either.
Well, you know how they are adding the machines where you could order your own food without having to go to a counter, just pay
I
with your credit
saw
card.
those. I approve. I
Uh,
approve of that.
well, that's removing labor, right? So that's a job that is getting taken away and being made cheaper, right?
Yeah, and that's another conversation that makes me sad to think about is what all of the people that are going to do because it's nice. I mean, minimum wage increasing. So we both agree there's a problem, right? That
Oh
people
yes,
aren't getting paid enough.
right.
Is that okay? So there's a couple different ways to try to fix it. I think that honestly, making minimum wage higher is probably putting a band aid on a problem that is a lot bigger than just how much money they're making. For example, jobs going out the window to dang robots. You know?
I don't think that it. I don't like the band-aid metaphor. I think it's more like telling someone else to fix it for now. As in, like they're saying, okay, corporations, you're making a lot of money, so you make up the difference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's a band-aid. If you're saying it's temporary, it's only a temporary solution, and we need to find the root of the problem. Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I at risk of not disagreeing enough this far into the episode, I want to start making some novel suggestions for how I think that it might work. Like,
Okay.
what if the government shored up the difference, like for a living wage? If the people that are voting to make a living wage actually believe in it, they should be fine with some tax dollars maybe meeting halfway, right?
So you think that the you think minimum wage should equal minimum living wage?
That's the idea, right? That's the liberal dream,
Okay.
is that you can go into any job in the U.S. and make enough to feed yourself. You
And
shouldn't
okay.
you shouldn't be clocking in and losing money,
Oh, I see what
right?
you're saying.
Do you? Do you,
Yeah,
Don?
yeah, I do.
I'm just
So I, you're saying that the government has to subsidize that?
That'd be cool. I mean, wouldn't you? If you're mad that they're taking money from this side, I know that you don't like big government. So maybe we can meet in the middle and say, what if the government subsidized the living wage for people that are willing to get off their butts and do work? You
That
know?
that actually goes to part two of the conversation I wanted to have of this podcast. I'll touch on it briefly. Mislabeling. So you keep saying have the government pay for it, right? Me.
Yeah.
So you're saying the government as if we're not the government, as if we're not the ones who give the government the money to do that.
Oh, I thought that's how you felt.
What do you mean?
I thought that was how you, with your libertarian ideology, felt, was that this government was this gigantic entity far out there.
No,
I was trying to make it palatable for you.
don't dumb it down for me. I know how to think.
Dumb it down. You said dumb it down.
Hey, I not always. I just say explain it for when I am actually stupid.
Okay, I'll save it.
Thanks.
um,
But
I don't
so
think
it's I know the government is us. So
ideally.
rephrase your argument for me in saying that we are subsidizing it.
Okay, so if we are subsidizing it, well, that's a great point, Donald. Thank you. Because if we are the government, we are not. What are we not? The corporation,
Right.
right? So we're definitely not the corporation if we are the government. So wouldn't you just have a knee jerk reaction where these rich guys should help more? Don't you have that? Do you have that feeling in your gut
Um
when you see someone like absolutely drowning in wealth, and you see someone who's making decisions that are hurting people that are smaller than them and that can't help themselves, don't you kind of have a gut instinct like, hey, why isn't this person helping more? Or is that completely off your radar?
let me create a hypothetical bubble world real quick.
All right, I love
Okay.
it.
So let's say we got 10 people, right? Put on a bubble world where nobody else has interaction with them. These 10 people have created a world where they can survive in and raise families and whatnot. So one person in this bubble world creates the greatest thing where you take one pill every day and you never have to eat, drink, or sleep. That all
Okay,
comes for you. So
okay,
he exchanges that for in return for the precious wealth of this bubble world, right? That the other people are mining up. So now he's amassed this big amount of wealth. Is is this person who amassed a large amount of wealth, if he's not responsible with that wealth, does he not deserve it? Because he earned it to begin with.
right.
Were you following up to that point?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so you're saying that this person that comes up with this great thing, just this reminds me of your argument we had the last time we talked, where you're talking. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry,
Uh,
but um, this person that creates this thing that helps everybody, it helps everyone so much that we're unanimously across the board willing to engage with that thing
mm-hmm.
that he invented, right?
Right.
So your argument is that this guy, just because he starts, I guess I'm not sure what your argument. What so
My argument is that the people who the corporations who have a billion bajillion quadrillion dollars,
uh-huh.
if they don't use that money appropriately, do they deserve to give some of it away? Or should they be forced to give some of it away?
Appropriately is different than illegally, though.
Sure.
Like if they use this sudden influx of power over everyone else
To be above
to
the law?
any to any negative means at all, then we have to start questioning them, right? That's
Well, that's a pretty
that's
broad
part of it.
brush. What do you mean by any negative means?
So anything that so this magical society that only has 10 people in it, this guy invents a pill that makes it that you no longer need resources, right?
Right.
So people have two options. They can either go and like painstakingly scrounge up resources for themselves their own way, or they can turn to this guy and do whatever he says in exchange for that pill.
Right.
So what if whatever he says in exchange for that pill harms everyone but him?
Then those people have the choice not to do it, I suppose.
Or the I mean, see this that is what reminded me of a previous argument that we had is that these people have a choice
Right.
not to do it. And if you think about it in terms of this pill changes the entire landscape for all 10 people, their choice gets taken away, I think.
Well, okay. So let's
So
say.
going back to your metaphor, this McDonald's corporation,
Right.
it's one of the only places that you can walk in off the street, start making money to feed your family. That's your metaphor, right?
Right.
Is you're comparing McDonald's to the magic happy pill.
Mm-hmm.
So if you say, hey, actually, we're not going to give you enough to support yourself with this magic happy pill that we've stumbled upon, and it affects everybody except for the guys that have the pill manufacturing, this is falling apart on me. I'm sorry.
Well,
It's bad.
Okay. So that's the whole point. So if they stop doing it, then it stops being produced and he stops getting wealth, right?
Yeah. That reminds me of that. I can't remember his name, but when Obama was he had this dinner, and a prominent black Republican was talking about how the Democrats are mad that this guy is making more money than everyone else. He should be putting more in the pot, but he's making a bunch of money. He just put $10 million in the pot. Are you saying that he should put more in just because for reasons?
That's kind of my whole argument. These people earn their money, right? And we do have certain amount of taxes that they pay. They pay what is it? I think 38% of their annual income just towards income taxes. That's not counting property tax or any other form of sales tax or anything else that they're doing with their money.
Mm-hmm.
So they're paying, we could say, roughly 40 to 50% of their income per year into government spending. So
Yeah.
should they pay more? Is that what you're saying?
That's why this issue is so polarizing, and it perfectly demonstrates the difference between conservative and liberal thinking. Is conservative?
Hold on. You,
Yeah,
you're cutting out really bad. What happened? I lost you.
you're
I lost you. Alex. Well, I know what happened. They got him. He started talking about rich people, taxing rich people more. It's over. He's gone. Rip Alex. Say a prayer for our good friend, Alexander. We knew him well. Oh. Now we all gotta be sad.
Hey, I see you.
Hey, you're back! Whoa!
Sorry about that.
You dodged the rich people killing you for criticizing how much they're taxed.
Go ahead. Say that again. I want to hear that.
The rich people were shooting you because you were talking about putting on more taxes. You suicided twice in the back of the head.
Oh, yeah. That's good.
We got a message in chat from Nikki Vista.
No! Oh, that must be because I disconnected.
Yeah.
She's watching. Aww.
Yeah.
I want to shout out to my wife. She's the best. My
Hello.
number one fan.
Hello, Alexander's wife.
Mm-hmm. She's watching 2 kids right now while I dither about talking politics.
Wow, that's a good wife.
So, yeah.
So we were talking about you were saying that perfectly separates liberal and conservative ideologies and thought process.
Because Absolutely. Thank you. Because the conservatives have this belief they want to conserve the way that it is because it's working so far. So if you say these guys are giving a bunch of money already, they're a lot of the reason that we're successful. Let's not mess with that because what if they change something after that and get back at us that way? And then liberals are more of the ideology that hey, let's try something new because currently there's a lot of problems. They want to basically I think of liberals as wanting to more like take a risk to try something different and conservatives wanting to preserve what they currently have because it's going well.
I think that's fair. Um, I just think that the way that the changes come into effect are so it just seems like it couldn't work ever.
Yeah.
Like increasing taxes on the rich doesn't seem well thought out because then what happens if those businesses then either A fail or B go somewhere else? The
What if
the only third option is that they're making enough money anyway and moving to somewhere else isn't cost efficient. Those are the only two times when that the worst case scenario wouldn't happen. And
that's
currently,
this
there's like 100 places they can go.
yeah, that's but that is also that argument that you're saying is that these companies they all they care about is the bottom line
Right.
and the only thing that they need to do is keep being themselves and keep making money. So the only problem that I have with that is that we're saying, okay, we have a problem with some of these large companies, right?
Right.
They're cutting corners, they're hurting people that can't fight back because they've made a system where they're the only option to get a paycheck in a lot of places, right?
Is that true?
I think so. If you're not educated and you live in a small town and there's a McDonald's and a Walmart and they're all actually owned by the same guy anyway,
uh, so
what do you think about that?
in a small situation like that, well,
Yeah,
here's your
because
argument.
all I have right
If
now.
if the people in that town don't make enough money to survive, then they also don't make enough money to buy things at Walmart or McDonald's.
Oh, so you agree there should be living wages mandatory
No,
for each and
that's
every
not at
one?
all what I said. I'm saying that in this scenario, your those businesses would fail because they aren't making enough money to spend money in order for these businesses to succeed.
Oh, so you're saying my hypothetical is impossible,
Either that or they're paying them more.
or they're paying them more. Yeah,
Or there's some other the small town is exporting gold or something.
yeah. Let's go back to like 1800s America
Okay.
and think about the very worst case scenario
You
from
mean
my
back
side of the argument.
back before there were income tax?
That shouldn't have triggered Donald.
Go on.
He hates income tax. Um, so they used to have these things called company stores where
Right.
miners who were employed by a mining company,
They got
their
paid in
paycheck,
monopoly money.
yeah, they got paid in monopoly money and had to give it back to the company
Yeah.
in order to get food and clothes for their family.
And they couldn't
And
spend it anywhere else.
yeah, that's essentially slavery, right?
Oh yeah. It's
So that
wage
is what we're
slavery.
trying to avoid. And there's this fear amongst liberals that that kind of situation is still happening to a lesser extent right now. And so they're able to put this boogeyman up on a stick and say, "Hey, this guy who's making a huge amount of money
Uh-huh.
is actually bad. Let's make him pay people more. At least we can do that small thing for people that work for him, just like we did since American history." So if I were to argue that we've been doing this to companies in smaller and smaller and smaller increments since the 1800s to now, would you be willing? Would you still think that it was a bad thing if it's a quintessentially American thing to regulate companies?
Regulation on companies isn't a bad thing. It protecting the masses from the rich minority is super important in a capitalistic society. But doing it that way isn't going to work. What I think would work, would truly work. So you know how entrepreneur Elon Musk, right? He's doing
Yes.
so much, and he's what, a multi? Is he a billionaire yet? I know he's at least a multimillionaire,
He's
and
amazing.
he's an entrepreneur in, and he's doing things for humanity, right? He's going to space. He just planted like what, 1,000,000 trees, or 1,000,001 or something,
On
and
Mars.
he shot out a car to Mars. He made a what, a $100 sports car that runs on grass or something. I'm exaggerating, but
Yeah.
he he's done all these incredible things for humanity as a whole, and he's also profiting off of it. So if we had a way to make it so you had to do something like that, that'd be cool. But I don't think there's any feasible way to do that, because he's doing that because he wants to, not because he has to.
That's awesome. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Here's my counter argument to say that that is possible.
Ooh,
Is
okay.
that, did you know that in New York they have implemented, I forget the actual term for it. Basically, if you want to own a car in New York
Uh huh.
and drive your car, there's like a toll road for just one guy vehicles where you have to pay a certain little amount to be able to even use the roads if you're just wanting to have the luxury of your own car. So that's a good example of this guy has made a certain amount of money. And so the government intervenes and says, hey, if you want to drive on these roads like you own them, you have to donate to the crappy roads that other people have to use. You have to donate to the bus system.
That's interesting.
That'd be cool, right? I love that idea. It seems like a good cross between, like, so you want to have a yacht, you got to pay for, like, the guys in coach a little bit, just
Hmm.
because you don't have to deal with that anymore. I think that would be fair.
Is it fair?
I
Is it
don't
fair
know.
that they have to pay for that
There's
road
a
that they're not
thousand.
using?
There's 1,000 rich people screaming in disgust right now.
Yeah. Is it fair that those people who have to pay extra towards the people who can't afford it for something that they're not using? Is that fair?
I don't know.
I can't think of a way that it would be. I could see where you think it would be, because you want to pay for your neighbor's internet and other things like that.
I'd be willing to. Yeah.
But I'm not, I can't get behind that at all, even a little bit.
Well, you don't love your neighbor though.
It's not that. I think my neighbor should pull their own weight. I pull my weight. I don't ask my neighbor for handouts. Like I
Didn't
would.
you need a ride? Didn't you need a ride to Petco the other day?
Yes. Any more to that?
Drops the microphone.
Go on. Is there any argument to what you're saying?
I'm just saying that when you actually need help, imagine that you need help every single day,
Uh-huh.
and there's people like that. It's true. They need help every single day.
Here,
And there's-
let me blow you out of the water real quick.
All right, go ahead.
So that ride to Petco, the person who gave me that ride is now $10 richer.
Ooh, you did it.
Because
Paid for a service.
he did me a favor. He didn't have to do it. He didn't even ask for payment. But I felt that I should, because I took time out of his day. It was kind of convenient for him because he was like in the area, but still. Right? He could have said no.
That's cool. That's cool. And all of this stuff, I'm being way too positive already. We're only 30 minutes into the podcast. We can't
Argue with me.
I'm trying to. I just really like the thought that there's someone who, yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna throw him money because I know that that's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if McDonald's did that with all of their employees.
It's so affect that. Let's say McDonald's was opened up because they wanted to sell burgers to people, right? Now their goal is shifted to, instead of selling burgers to people, they're giving people livelihoods. Their main goal is to sell livelihoods in exchange for making burgers.
Whoa.
So that's kind of, it's backwards thinking. They're open in order to sell burgers. They're not open in order to create careers for people. It's a byproduct. I don't think anybody is supposed to work at the register at McDonald's forever.
How do you figure that? That's what I don't understand about a lot of conservative thinking is everybody's supposed to climb, right?
Right.
But eventually there's got to be people that don't climb. Otherwise, how are we going to get our burgers?
Because new people are born. New people are in high school and need a job.
This sounds nice for McDonald's.
Yeah, I mean that's their whole model.
Yeah,
16-year-olds want to get money so they could take their so they can put gas in their cars, so they can go to the movies, so they can afford to buy candy or whatever. That's what I had a job. I didn't get my first job until I was 18. I was a very poor boy until that point. I worked at Arby's, right? I worked at Arby's for a year, from 18 to 19, in my senior year of high school, and it wasn't bad. I made a little bit of cash. I got to spend money. I got to pay for my own car payment and insurance. It was cool.
Yeah. Let me give you a personal anecdote though. When I was just shortly after I moved here, I wasn't. I sometimes struggle with things, and I was seeing a therapist, and I wasn't well medicated at that point.
Okay.
And what I was telling my therapist, I remember vividly, was I was just telling him all I want to do is work at McDonald's the rest of my life. Just clock in, get my paycheck, and get out. I don't have any aspirations. I don't have any dreams, and it seems like the only thing that I'm actually qualified to do.
Okay.
It was technically true at that point. Luckily for me, I have a great system of support, and I had a lot of people volunteering to help me get out of that situation. So now I'm well medicated and I'm stable and I'm qualified to do a lot better things than working at McDonald's for the rest of my life, right?
Sure.
So there's billions of people that are like me that don't have the good system of support, that all that they are qualified to do is work at McDonald's for a while. And I'm not trying to belittle these people. I'm saying that I was one of those people, and I was very, very lucky, almost just randomly lucky, to not be one of those people now. So I don't know if them saying that, oh, yeah, well, this isn't a job that you want to be at forever is a good argument because
some people are stuck there forever, you're saying?
Yeah. And
so
they don't have a choice. Like those people in the small town with only Walmart, McDonald's, they're all the same guy.
Okay, let's do a deep dive into that then. So you say that some people may be stuck there forever because of their own mental state?
Problems. Yeah. Their set of skills.
Okay. Set of skills. So nobody is born able to fix a car or set up an internet router or fix cables, right?
Well, I know you're not about to say that some people aren't born unable to learn.
Are some people unable to learn a trade skill?
Yeah. That's the people that I'm talking about specifically.
Okay.
People that can't learn. They have I don't know what the proper term is. They're stunted.
They have a learning disability?
Yeah, they have a learning disability. They're disabled from learning new things, which is how you get out of McDonald's and get to a place where they're supposed to pay you a living wage.
So I said so 4 times in a row.
Yeah,
that's a good stutter. There's my disability right there. The people who are stuck at minimum wage jobs, the only people that should be there, in your opinion, are the people who don't have the ability to get a better education or job. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. That would make me a monster. Nice try.
No, that's what I'm hearing. So explain it.
Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Let me clarify. So that does make me sound like a monster. I'm just trying to make a point that there are people that can't get out of the trap that. So there's a huge, powerful entity called McDonald's,
right?
And it makes an opportunity to have a paycheck. for people that wouldn't have the opportunity otherwise.
Oh, that here. Pause your point real
Yeah.
quick. If we didn't have McDonald's, would people who do have learning disabilities be unable to find work, or even Walmart or any other entry
If
level
we
job that anybody
if
can work
we
at?
didn't have if we didn't have those,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it would be up to the. I think that in American history, there's like a lot of precedent for just giving somebody a job because they're quote unquote simple,
hmm.
to quote the words of the time.
Okay,
I,
go.
so those type of people, like there used to be horrible names for them, like the town drunk, right?
Oh,
That's a that's a funny terminology in books like Huckleberry Finn,
yeah,
but
I see
in
that.
reality, how else is that person besides begging? There's been beggars since biblical times,
Oh
right?
yeah, there's always been
So
beggars.
so McDonald's is the answer to that problem, is what liberal people want to think. And how can you defeat that argument when they're making all this money and cutting corners to give themselves more money and not helping the people that actually make it possible for them to keep making money? There's
Interesting.
this, yeah, there's this relationship that only goes one way for some reason. And I'm trying to figure out why you think that would be okay.
So, hmm, it's okay because I wasn't thinking about specifically people who couldn't find a better place to work, right? Hmm. Are because I've known a few people who probably would work one of those jobs for a very long time. Can't Are they being taken advantage of? Because I mean, the alternative is they just don't have work, right?
Oh, that's dark. So you're saying, hey, beggars can't be choosers?
Oh, literally. It
Yeah.
Not exactly. It's more like, can you take advantage of somebody by saying, "Hey, I have a thing that I'll give for you. Here's what I'm giving you. Do you want it? Yes or no?" And so they have the opportunity at pretty much every second of their lives to say either yes or no, because even while they're doing it, they can say, "Okay, I'm done." Are they being taken advantage of?
I would say so. I mean, think about the hiring process. It's a lengthy process, and certain people, because of this is probably the 15th time I've said this. There's a hidden class system in America where
It's not hidden. It's not a caste system, but it's a class system.
I think it is a caste system in a
No,
way.
not at all.
Because, okay, let's think about this. This is
Okay.
going to be a large roundabout
Okay.
thing, but okay. So say you go into the doctor's office and you are getting ready for surgery, and the doctor comes in. He's got a gold chain on. Several of his teeth are gold across the front.
Okay.
He's wearing a purple coat and nice Nikes, like really nice, like gold on the aglets Nikes. Okay.
What kind of cane does he have?
Yeah. See, you filled in the joke for me because you know the type of person that I'm describing. If you
Sure.
saw someone in a doctor's office who was behaving with that set of class uh, variables and traits,
Okay.
you would know immediately that something was amiss.
Sure.
Because in our culture, if you are going to go to college, you have to be able to talk a certain way. You have to be able to communicate ideas in a certain way. You have to be able to make small talk in a certain way.
Okay.
You have to be part of this NPR bubble and be able
Oh.
to know all the buzz phrases and catchwords that are like. And if you are not part of that group, you actually sneer at the people that are in that group because you think of, oh, I lost you.
No, I'm still here.
Because you think of them as like frou frou and less real than you are. But that's actually a hidden. I think that is a leftover from a time in America when poor people we're trying to keep the people that are in poverty and help the rich people get richer. And
Hmm.
that's the hidden class system that I'm talking about.
I don't think that's a
So
class. It's a class system for sure, but it's not a caste system. So not anymore. I've said it 100 times. I truly believe that anyone, even people with learning disabilities or people who are handicapped, be it physically or mentally, everybody has the opportunity to become successful, probably even exponentially successful, to the fact that they could also make their children successful without their children having to do anything.
But people that are born into poverty and only learn the colloquialisms of poverty and don't learn how you were supposed to behave during a job interview, they don't learn how you're supposed to dress during a job interview because they have no one around them to teach them that that's important. And as a matter of fact, people around them in their sphere of influence will tell them, they will shame them for trying to talk like those people or
Oh,
trying
that's
to dress like those people.
okay. I see what you're saying. So
That's
the caste system isn't held together by the corporate entities; it's held together by the people in those levels.
absolutely.
Hmm.
That's why if me and you were walking by a trailer park and someone said, "Hey, it looks like a couple of," I'm gonna say some swear words. Looks like a couple of fags are walking by, right?
Uh huh.
You're what is your response to that?
My
What's
response to
my
that,
response to that? We
I
keep walking,
I
right?
would I would grab your hand and then keep walking.
Exactly, because we know instinctually that a person that talks that way and has those ideas is not of our class.
Okay.
If they were to say that to someone in their own class, that would be fighting words.
I see.
That's dangerous, and that limits the way how far you can get in life unless you have someone step in and manually teach you the things that all these rich people are getting just naturally by hanging out with other rich people. They learn to say things like colloquialism or split the difference or things like that that you expect college level people to say. And that, getting back to my point, those people are stuck in a way that McDonald's kind of has them by the short hairs, don't you think? McDonald's says, "Hey, we'll accept people of any class status. We aren't going to pay them more if they improve. We aren't going to help them learn the language to improve themselves to get to a managerial position, but we'll give them this small amount of money to keep them where they're at."
Okay. Well, so it's not really an issue with the corporations. It's more an issue with uh, so society and culture. Is that what you were saying?
Well, that's a great point. I am kind of saying that, aren't I?
Well, I agree with that. I think we do have major societal and cultural issues that is hard to work over because nobody wants to change their ways, right? As at least on a large scale. Like if you go to a family of 4 or 5 people and you say you guys are doing this thing wrong, stop doing that. Here's what you should do instead. They're going to laugh at you and then kick you out of their house, and they have every right to do so because they shouldn't have to conform just because we say so, even if it is the better way.
Yeah.
There's It's hard. So I think public schools should teach people the right way to talk, or
Yes.
the right colloquialisms,
Mm-hmm.
including the word colloquialism.
Yeah, that would be great if they just had a course on, they taught us cursive in school. Great. What if we just replaced half of that cursive with, this is how job interviews go, and this is what that guy sees when you talk to him?
Common Core is really bad. In
Mm-hmm.
order So public schooling, it I'm glad I went to school. I learned a lot of stuff. I had the social aspect of it was super important for me in building my communication skills with people. But all it really did was teach me how to learn for myself. So I don't remember how to do any sort of stuff from geometry or algebra. I don't remember how to structure paragraphs appropriately for essays. And one thing I do remember though, as I do really like the physics class where I learned how electricity works. But that was like a specific skill, right? In that physics class, they were teaching a practical physical application. There's not enough of that in
Yeah.
in school. Practical physical applications.
Yeah, you're talking about how they teach you how to pass a test
Yeah,
in school. as opposed to teaching you how to actually do something.
And that goes back to it's because the government says that they only get funding if they do a specific thing. So their arms are tied behind their or held forced behind their backs in order to do a specific process, because if they don't, then they're not a school anymore. They're not allowed to be. They're not allowed to be to take things a certain way. The only ones that are allowed to do that are private schools, where the children have to pay hundreds of dollars of tuition a month in order to go.
And you're technically allowed to discriminate if you're a private school.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of bad. That's problematic. So you think, let's get it back to the subject. You think that this minimum wage fallacy wouldn't need to be in play at all if the schools were doing their jobs and taught people that, hey, you don't have to be McDonald's kicking bag.
Yeah. I will say that full force. Yes.
Okay. So what about, let's say, for just hypothetical conversation, that there are actually people that can't learn and they are doomed to either work at McDonald's or die. Let's say that. Let's say that two of those guys exist. Let's say there's two people like that.
Okay. Are you asking, do they deserve to die?
Do they? Yeah. If McDonald's, don't you think there should be some government interference in McDonald's paying them minimum wage that they can't survive without it? Or should the government make a job for those people? Because they're not going to go away. Just like Mike Arroyo said at work, this problem's not going to just go away. There's always going to be somebody who's broke and needs help.
Okay.
So what is your suggestion if you don't want McDonald's to have to fess up the $15? Wait, no, it was a large number you gave on your calculator.
$2 billion a year.
Yeah, if you don't want that company to have to do that, how are you suggesting that we take care of those people? You love the realistic application, just like in your physics class. So what's your realistic application and answer for that problem?
I suppose I don't have a good answer. I definitely don't think it should ride on the companies to take care of these people. I suppose, should they be a burden on their families then?
That's hard. You think of companies as innocent, though, which we're never really gonna see eye to eye on.
I do not think corporate entities are innocent. I do believe they are skirting the law and breaking the law in various parts. I do not think paying their employees is one of them, though.
So what if every time we caught companies doing something off the beaten path of what's acceptable, they had to pay people reasonable wages? So, like there's a button, you just set off the alarm.
You find out a CEO of a big corporate entity is secretly selling babies for money, and then all of a sudden, then boom, minimum wage increase. Is that how it works? That's funny.
Wait a minute. This guy has all of these people in this third world country making shoes for cents on the dollar. He's got to help Americans now.
Human rights atrocities.
Yeah.
Well, then, if that were the
things like that, human rights atrocities.
That's a slippery slope, because then that would give the government the right to seize assets in regards to someone's personal income in their own bank account or whatever. On a very large scale.
Yeah. And that's my problem with my stance. Whenever I try to argue with you, I'm arguing that the government needs to step in to make sure that bad people aren't able to do bad as easily. But I don't trust the government,
right?
Personally, so that all my arguments kind of fall apart at that point.
So we had another argument where you think that we've been talking about minimum wage and livable wage. We haven't really addressed people able to support their families as well. So let's say, what if you're a single parent with a kid? Then should McDonald's pay for your kid as well, since you're their employee and now you need to also feed your kid?
I remember this conversation. Yeah, and my point was that you should be able to have a living salary, not salary, but you should be able to make enough to be able to support your family, especially if the alternative is your family goes hungry and has some like damage to them done because they aren't able to get all the resources that they need for a certain period of time.
I agree with your statement. How do we do that though? How does the person make enough money to survive?
I don't know. Because your main argument is that, oh yeah, this is what it was. You said that people get to choose to have their kids.
Right.
And so that if they're choosing to have their kids, why would that problem that they created for themselves default onto a company that they work for?
Yes.
But how do you square that with people that don't get to choose to have their kids?
The very small minority of people who happen to have a child out of a situation where they were not willing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
That's hard to say. So that's a very, very, very specific example that I can't argue towards because of morality reasons.
Yeah, which companies don't see anyway, so that doesn't count.
Now, in that certain situation, I believe the aggressor should have to reconcile that because the aggressor is the one who broke the law. And like, if you crash into someone's car and you don't have insurance, you have to pay for it because you broke the law and didn't have insurance, right? It's the same situation, just on a gross scale.
So what if the aggressor is a company that doesn't apply to them?
Explain.
Not specifically for that, but for like a different situation. I'm not saying that McDonald's is impregnating people against their will. I'm saying that your logic doesn't add up if you're talking about the same thing that we were just talking about, which is that the aggressor should have to pay for the crimes that they commit. These companies commit crimes. Why are they not paying for them?
Well, when companies do commit crimes, they usually do pay out.
Who do they pay them to? Who's
YouTube.
getting that money?
YouTube just got fined by the FEC. Like an undisclosed amount for creating situations where children or things were marketed towards children, but YouTube's algorithm and data acquisition was still going through onto those children. So like they were getting the children's watch times and their watch habits and things like that, which isn't legal to gather on children.
Oh yeah.
So that they were fined because they were doing something that wasn't legal. So it does. They just have to be caught.
Did those children get the money?
Oh, of course not. No, it went to Senator number 3 from Kansas.
Exactly. That's the whole problem that I have is that these people, like, there should be a culture of. I was just listening to this on flipping hacking NPR for some reason, and they were talking about the prison system and this guy that doesn't want the prison system to be the way that it is right now. And one of his main arguments was that people should, like, the punishment should be fixing what they messed up, not
just paying money.
Just being thrown in a dark hole or paying a bunch of money.
That is interesting. Fix what you broke. Yeah, that really quick before I go in, addendum. I know there are only 2 senators per each state. I said Senator number 3. There are only 2.
Oh.
So
lots of emails.
There's in your house, right? And when you're a kid, if you spill your drink, you clean it up, right?
Yeah.
You don't. They don't send you to timeout and then leave the drink there. Yeah. Either you clean it up, someone else cleans it up, and then you go timeout, right? So, yeah, breaking the law is like a higher tier of spilling your juice on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a good point. Why are we sending people to prison for crimes that they need to fix? Ooh.
Also, why would you send them to prison? Like prison's like college for being a criminal.
Oh, that's an interesting metaphor.
Yeah, like you go there, the government pays your fees, and you learn how to be a criminal better from other criminals
Oh yeah,
in the field. Yeah,
I
and
like
also
that.
you learn that you're valueless, so nothing you do matters, and you and
We both do know
but
the prison system is horrible. Yes.
yeah, it's
Uh,
awful. I don't. It seems like old. It sounds made up. It sounds like a bunch of kids in the 1700s were like, send him for 5 years. What if he kills two people? 10 years, like that. Just like
yeah.
dumb. It doesn't sound right. Aren't there countries that are rehabilitating people?
Instead of punishing them,
Yeah,
I think so. I think
I think.
we lost track of that. The people we're sending to prison are our people. Are
Yeah,
they're Americans who could be working. It's it's because I don't think we as a society know how to fix the people. It's easier to send them into a hole and saying, what if they do it again? We know they've done it once, so if they're in the hole, they can't do it again, right?
yeah,
But with that being said, we've always done that, so we don't know how to make the people that we throw into a hole better as people.
that's true. That's true. That would be really hard because
It's another cultural thing. It's we as a culture don't know how to take care of people who we feel like we shouldn't be able to take care of. It's kind of my fallacy where I don't think I should pay for the internet at my next door neighbor's house.
yeah,
It's I don't I think that person should be able to do their own thing, and if they can't, then sucks to be them. But what if there's like a reason that they can't that I have the ability to fix if I spend some time on it?
that's true. That's true. I think Americans are also afraid of that because in our culture, there's good guys and there's bad guys. We base all of our movies around it. Every book that we've ever read teaches us that there are people that are on the bad side and there are people that are on the good side. And people on the bad side can't be converted, they have to be defeated because we're
Uh,
Americans. I think
hmm.
Americans love battle. I think they love having a common enemy and just being able to say, like, hey, all the people in prison, they're bad and they're getting what they deserve. Makes some people sleep better at night, especially if you've been the victim of a crime or your family has been the victim of a crime. Try to tell them, like, oh no, rehab is going to help. Won't work.
I think we're really close as a society because of how easy it is to communicate. I think we're really close to being able to have a resource for people who need help to get help on their own. The internet.
Yeah.
Even I could even go to a small section of internet, YouTube. You could look up on YouTube anything you need. If you need to know how a light bulb filament works, you could look that up on YouTube. If you need to know how to check your transmission or how to check your oil rather in a car, you look it up on YouTube. Any skill, any basic skill you need to know, someone and 100 other people have uploaded an easy to understand video about that. And because of how easy it is to access that resource, I think that we're really close to the next step is you wake up sad. The next step is you look up a YouTube video and it tells you how you need to work towards fixing that, whether it be talking to people about it, getting a therapist, telling someone how you feel, etc., so forth. I think we're really close to having that sort of system where you can find out anything you struggle with, a way to put yourself on the path to fix it.
That's great. And that reminds me of, a long time ago, I was feeling bad about decisions that I had made. And I actually Googled how to be a good person. And there's a lot of resources out there
Hmm.
for people that actually, have this moral compass, and that, there's exceptions to the far side of every argument. There's people that are just actually bad guys. But
Sure.
I think that people, for the most part, feel like they're in a position where they have either be a bad guy for a short amount of time to try to help people around them, or let people around them die and be a bad guy that way. And they're caught between a rock and a hard place. And I think that if more people had access to that system of support that the internet provides, but that's implying that the internet is somehow free of fallacies and problems itself,
Sure.
and that's definitely not true. You could go, hey, what's the example that we used a long time ago? The worst thing, like, what if you're like, hey, I'm a pedophile, and you go to the internet and you get a bunch of kill yourself, of like, that's all that you get
Oh
from
yeah.
there. That could be bad.
Sure.
Maybe the government should regulate what materials are available to
No
people
no no
that
no no
want to
no
help these.
no 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 no
No,
no 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 no
no, no,
no
no, 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 no.
no 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 no.
Scared them people.
Educate the people how to use the internet. That's what I think.
That's a good idea.
That should be
That
part
should
of the
be another
curriculum in
class.
school.
Yeah, part of the curriculum is how you Google things and
You
how you are
remember
supposed to dress.
you remember that lie we were told in high school that or even middle school where Wikipedia is not a good source of information?
Wikipedia is great.
Wikipedia is the source of information. Are
Mm-hmm.
you kidding me?
Yeah. Excuse me. Had a weird little gas bubble there.
Is that what that was?
It was a spider bark, as Jacob would say.
I love that.
Yeah.
Barking spider. So the school sucks. We know. The internet
Mm-hmm.
is a great spot in order to learn anything you want to. Here, let's say here. I'll pull up a YouTube video real quick. How to, let's see. Check to see if you have a flat tire. Because maybe your tire is low, and you don't know if you just need air, or you need to know if it's flat. We got okay. So we got that the exact thing that I looked up, along with how to change a tire, how to inflate a tire, how to fix a flat tire easily, how to know if your tire is flat, which is what I looked for. How to fix a leak in your tire.
That's good.
But let's go to the other extreme. Go to YouTube and type in how to not be sad. So now I got a dozen different videos about people who suffered with depression and talk about how they got out of it. So you can realize that you're in common company, that there are people just like you who figured out how to live normal lives. This is uncanny. 50 years ago, people would have to be alone and be sad in their basement.
Mm-hmm. Or just assume everyone was that way.
Okay, that was my rant. We were talking about is it the company's responsibility or your responsibility or my responsibility to provide for your child who you had, let's say, either accidentally or on purpose, but not by force?
That's a good question. I don't know. My knee jerk reaction, my gut instinct is to say that paying for a child is such a drop in the bucket for these companies that it shouldn't be an issue
So your
to
argument
help their families.
is they have enough money they can afford it, so they should?
Right. My argument is, so in your world, for your side of the argument, Spider-Man would realize he has Spidey powers and then just use them to start his own small business and sell it to people, as opposed to going around helping people.
Not exactly. I would think that Spider-Man should maybe find a way to You're asking should Spider-Man be monetized? Sure,
Be what?
put like a
You cut
donation
out.
cup. Should Spider-Man be monetized? Should he monetize his work?
No, I'm asking if having the powers makes him responsible for stopping bad guys, like the movies indicate.
Oh, so just because he has spider powers, should he do it or should he not?
Yeah,
I mean, should he? Yes. Does he have to? No. Should it be expected of him? Probably not even that, because he has to risk his life and very frequently his loved ones in order to do so. He
but he's
does.
just better than us.
Yeah, he's better than us. Not
So if
because
expect,
hold. He's not better than us because he has superpowers. He's better than us because he wants to help. He wants to help people. That's the whole message of pretty much every superhero. They have these powers. They don't have to, but they do it because they want to. They're heroes. They're super and they're heroes. They're heroes because they want to help people. They're super because they have superpowers.
whoa. So you're saying that if the government stepped in and made him help, he would no longer be a hero.
Correct. He would be working for the government.
Well,
Probably forced to be.
That's really interesting. I just wonder if there's a certain amount of power that you can wield, like McDonald's, where that argument no longer applies. Like, because let's face it, McDonald's is not Spider Man. McDonald's is an army of weapons grade Spider Men that have been designed to make the most money possible.
Go on.
I'm just saying that there's with great power comes great responsibility. Sure, we love Peter Parker because he chooses to put himself at risk to help people that can't help themselves. What if Peter Parker was immune to death?
Okay.
Would
Oh.
he? You know what I mean?
Well,
You would kind of think he was a jerk if he didn't help at that point.
so
And
you're
I'm
saying
that McDonald's is approaching immortality.
well, so you're saying let's say Peter Parker was immune to death and his family couldn't get hurt. Let's say he didn't like helping people. Let's say it made him sad to help people. But because he has the ability to, should he? Should he have to expend that little part of himself, his own happiness, in order for other people to be able to survive? Should he have to do that? Is that his responsibility? It's the right thing to do.
Consequences? What are the consequences to him? He's mildly uncomfortable.
So let's say the consequences for McDonald's would be their bottom line is hurt, right? So they make less money. They are less incentivized to continue their business because their incentive is being picked at. Their incentive is their bottom line. Their bottom line is smaller. They're less incentivized, right? That's the whole argument. How much can we chip away at their incentive before they don't want to do it anymore?
That's a great question. That again describes this abusive relationship that I think that you have with corporations. in that don't scare them or they will go away. Don't try to make them pay for their crimes because then we will lose what we already have getting from them, right?
I'm not saying don't make them pay for their crimes. Absolutely make them pay for their crimes. Absolutely catch them on tax evasion. Absolutely do all these things. Don't increase the amount that they have to pay legally. Instead, find out what they're doing illegally.
I'd be down for that. I would agree with
you. As we stand right now, I think we have enough legal backing in order to hold a company accountable for the bare minimum. I don't think that we are enforcing it quite enough.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, with how big of a conglomerate AT&T has become, and how they monopolize so many individual portions of most areas have exactly 2 cellular towers providers, whether it be AT&T and I think the other one is Verizon. So that's a good bust, right? It's AT&T and Verizon, but are these two companies communicating with each other in order to set their own prices? Maybe, probably not, but maybe. Now we can go to pharmaceuticals, and this is the big difference between what people want and what people need. You may not need a cell phone. You do need the pills to make it so your leukemia doesn't kill you, right?
Right.
So it's easy to say, you know what, maybe you don't need a cell phone for a month so you can pay for your rent so you can live in your house. It's not easy to say, I can't afford food because I have to pay for my medication. There,
Yeah.
your needs, those companies, pharmaceuticals specifically, need to be looked at with a very fine-toothed comb, more so than any other company in America, because they sell what people need to survive.
So you're saying that this imaginary uh, government influence that we're proposing, we push on all companies, should only be applied to specific companies
Not necessarily only be applied, but more aggressively.
liberally.
Yes.
Sorry. I want to say I agree with you, especially for the pharmaceutical companies, because if they're saying like, "Hey, being nice to the people hurts our bottom line," well, you got into the wrong business,
That's fair.
sir. Yeah, don't become a person that has the help for everybody if you don't want to help everybody.
Here's the thing that hurts, right? So these medications aren't necessarily new. Like, for instance, penicillin is, what, 100 years old now? So penicillin is, we, we've become we've become able to manufacture it through genetically engineering plants and bacteria, so that it's becoming less and less expensive all the time. But the prices aren't going down because pharmaceutical companies buy these patents so that they have them and they control how they're produced and sold. And that's what's not being looked at close enough.
Yeah.
They, a good loophole is generics. So, if I'm not mistaken, and I need to educate myself a bit more on this before ranting about it, but I'll do it anyway in order to sound like an ass.
Mhm.
Pharmaceutical companies get the medications, and then another company sells a generic form, which is the same active ingredient but different inactive ingredients in order to be cheaper. There's no marketing for generics, and the only way you'll ever know about a generic medication is if you look it up yourself, or the doctor prescribes it to you and the pharmacist fills it as generic instead of name brand. So
Yeah.
they've created a way so that they're not really monopolizing penicillin. They could also take penicillin B, or whatever the generic form of it is, that is either less potent or just generally easier to make, but it's always going to be less effective. Otherwise,
Right.
the name brand would just be the generic brand if the generic was more or just as effective but cheaper.
Right. And there is definitely a difference between generic and name brand medications. There's designs in pills for time releases, for
Mm-hmm.
example. Like one of the medications that I have is really hard to get the generic version of it because the company that makes it is like a little sponge in there that once it hits stomach acid, it starts expanding and
Ooh,
pushes it out over a small period of time. And
interesting.
expecting like a generic company to be able to copy that is pretty ridiculous.
That I
So,
think that we treat pharmaceuticals as food, as in, you know how, let's say you have a food product, right? Here, I got a can of peanuts right here.
yeah,
It's off-brand. It's from Walmart, great value brand. So you got this ingredients list right here. Um, so let me read you the ingredients right here, right under the block. We got peanuts, and then sea salt, sugar, cornstarch, yada yada. But It tells you what it's made out of, everything that's in it. Drugs do the same exact thing. Exact same thing. That's how you know what's in a drug. You just read that. But it doesn't tell you the amounts other than the active ingredient. So because we're able to patent and make money off of medication, which I do believe we should be able to, that way we incentivize people coming up with new medications and also making abilities to make these medications cheaper in order to help their own bottom line. I think that we've gotten to a point where now, because we've protected the people who are able to make and produce these things, we've gone too far and made it so they also control how much it costs in order for the people who depend on these things in order to survive. For instance, McDonald's can sell you a burger for $2. You could really like that burger that sells for $2, and then all of a sudden they make it $5. So you don't need that burger. You could eat something else, but you need that medication that now costs $500 that you can't afford. So we're treating them too much like food, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So I don't know. It kind of sounds to me like there's this divide in that liberal people are expecting people to be good, I want to say. And your arguments from the conservative side are expecting people to be bad. For example, your argument you want people to be able to sell their medication and patent it because it incentivizes them to come up with new medications.
Right.
As if the thought of coming up with new medications to help people wasn't incentive enough.
Right.
That kind of puts a dreary light on humanity as a whole.
Well,
that would be a really hard worldview for me to get around just for that reason.
You're skipping a few steps. How does one get to the position in order to create these life-saving medications? They have to go through 4 years of college, then they have to go through 6+ years of med school, undergrad school, and then also land a lab job where they're also getting contracts from funding companies. There's a ton of stuff that they have to go through in order to get to this point. So if they're not...
You mean Joseph Salk didn't just come up with it in a dream?
What?
I think he's the guy. Jonas Salk, I'm so sorry. He invented the polio vaccine.
You mean the one who cut off a piece of specifically polio. You said polio and I thought smallpox. So
no, I'm just trying to. I'm just attacking one small part of your argument. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But education. Yeah, he enrolled. He got a bachelor's education. Tuition was free. Okay, yeah, you're right.
So
yeah, those people get in a position that costs them a lot in order to be the guy that has the ability to make the medication to help all the people.
If doctors got paid minimum wage, we would have no doctors.
Well, that's also a dreary perspective. You don't think this is an interesting thing that my mom told me about her foster parents sort of were Dutch, right?
Right.
So she was talking about how in that country she knew a guy who was a doctor, and no matter how many patients he treated or how much work he did, he always got the same paycheck, right?
Okay.
And she was explaining how that was bad, and that gave him incentive to not be a good doctor.
Yes.
And I asked her, don't you think that is actually noble, that he stayed in that position just to help people as opposed to getting a better paycheck? Don't you think that's a great human trait that he has, that he's just willing to help people no matter how much he's getting paid?
If you're asking yes, I do think that we should have people that are passionate about what they do. But we don't know how to bottle passionism. We don't know how to bottle passion, right?
Yeah.
For instance, if we were to pick someone off the street and say, hey, you're going to be our third person on the podcast, you gotta love doing it. it's not going to work because they're not going to want to be on a podcast that they don't care about.
Yeah.
People have to care about what they want to do in order to do a perfect job. For instance, Elon Musk is passionate about getting to Mars, so he's working hard to do so. He's making that his own passion come to life. Now, if a person who may or may not be passionate about teaching children in school, they're just there because that's a job that they know how to do and they're good at it. If they're passionate about it, if they're not passionate, rather, they're not going to innovate with it. They're just going to do what they have to do, get their paycheck, and then go, because that's what they do to make their own living.
Yeah. Maybe there should be incentive. I don't know. It's so hard to think about.
How do you bottle passion? Nobody knows.
How do you quantify passion? If the government could quantify how much passion a person has and then decide how much they have to pay their employees based on that.
The more passionate you are, the less you earn.
Exactly. No, the more passionate you are,
the more you earn.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you're just there to get the paycheck, then it's like, all right, well, you got to pay these guys minimum wage because that's all they're doing. If you're actually, go ahead.
Wouldn't that be amazing if you're good at your job and you do the right thing, your company rewards you for it? Wouldn't that be great?
Mm-hmm.
And you make good things happen, you get noticed. That doesn't happen with big corporation. You think the best cashier at McDonald's gets paid extra? No. That person could get laid off for a machine at any time. There's no real appreciation for it because there doesn't need to be in that situation. But in other places, the only time passion really gets any appreciation is on a creative standpoint. If someone makes a movie that they like or that they're really invested in and that they want people to love, or they make a good song or art piece or a TV show. You know how Rick and Morty, right? A phenomenon for at least the first 2 seasons, right? And it's still going strong. Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon are the 2 co-creators. Justin Roiland had the Rick and Morty idea in his head for like 15 years. He was passionate about it. It's something that he loves, and those are the characters he always does.
Yeah.
So, and that seeps through on an artistic level. People resonate with the amount of passion and love that these people put into the show. But if you're passionate about ringing up people really good at McDonald's, what does it matter?
That's true. These corporations are too big.
Is that a bad thing? Because we got now you can go to any town and get your favorite double cheeseburger from McDonald's. You couldn't have that if they weren't that big.
You know what that reminds me of?
What's that?
That reminds me of, like, for example, I used to work at a fictional company that doesn't actually exist.
Okay, go on.
I used to get really upset with them because I was the passionate guy. I was out there sacrificing what I felt was to be a lot of my time and energy and emotional well-being to try to be a better person at what I did. And the end result of it was there was no recognition at all. And eventually the company shut down. So the point that I'm getting at is that I don't think that was because there was a guy going at the very top of the pyramid saying, oh no, this guy's not going to get money for being passionate because I want all the money. I think it was so big that nobody even knew who I was.
Sure.
Like the fact that I wasn't, like, they aren't going around with their clipboards giving out recognition to the people that they see that are the best. In reality, they might even do that and the clipboards just get lost in the mail. You know?
Yeah.
So that if it's that big, it's problematic. I think that it's a lot like my small government argument. Small corporations, if you had nothing but small corporations, like every time they got a certain amount of bigness, the government was like, hey, cut it out. You got to split up now, like they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Then then I would be fine with not paying minimum wage. But if you're going to allow these companies to become demigods in their field, then minimum wage kind of seems like a more reasonable argument. Tell me what you think.
So if we're talking about the ones that we could think of off the top of our heads, the biggest ones like McDonald's and Walmart, then I'll argue that they're not the only ones around, because you can go to a Homeland grocery store or an Aldi's or an Albertsons or a you can go to a Burger King or a what is it, Jack in the Box, or any other place. You have options where you can go. The issue isn't that they're too big and they hold the control over everybody. It's that there's no better alternative as it stands right now. You're going to be making minimum wage at Arby's. You're going to be making minimum wage at Jack in the Box or Taco Bell or whatever you go to. This isn't an issue with the corporations themselves. This is an issue with the corporations can do it because we let them. We don't say, no, I'm not working for you unless you give me an extra dollar. Because if we do say that, someone will walk up from behind you and say, I'll work for that less amount. And then they got the job.
Yeah, that's this. I mean, can there be a company that's too big to fail, though? Like, if all these were to go out of business, I think the chances of the government bailing them out are a lot smaller than if McDonald's were to go out of business. Remember Ford? Remember when Ford got bailed out?
What is
I'm
up with...
trying to think.
So, I think bailouts... Gosh, I had a huge problem with bailouts when I was thinking about it the other day, but I can't think of it right now. Go on, I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I'm just saying that I'm trying to think of a company that's a car company that wouldn't have gotten bailed out because they don't have that many employees. Like banks can be too big to fail. There's industries where we accept that they're too big to fail, and then we just let them kind of have a demi monopoly with all their other companies, like internet companies, for example. They're divvying up the land
mm-hmm.
with each other behind closed doors to eliminate competition on purpose. And that's because they're so big that they employ so many people that we can't allow them to fail, or the cost will be greater than the reward.
Right? I see what you're saying. So if we didn't bail them out, the bad stuff would outweigh the amount that we're paying.
Exactly. Like if we lost an actual bank, like we did in the 20s. We are really afraid of that.
It sounds like a math problem, I guess. Maybe so if losing bank is greater than amount of money to not have them lose, let them die, or the opposite, if it's less than, get them out. I think the getting to that point should be avoided at all costs then, in that case. But if it does happen, then you gotta make that decision. But I believe when I was looking into the bailout thing that it wasn't the amount of money that they were given and for what they were given it for wasn't appropriate. But I don't know enough about that to talk about it in any meaningful way.
Sorry.
Come back there. I don't see anything.
Yeah, we're all in the same room, and there's a disturbance behind both of us. Watch as I give you bunny ears, because I know for sure that I am. Where's one? Oh, wrong hand. Sorry.
There you go. That's stupid.
Yeah. Well, I think that in terms of reviving discourse, we did a pretty good job with meeting halfway. Is there anything we can agree on with regards to companies paying a certain amount to people?
To force them to? No. Not in any way. No.
Mm.
I honestly I believe that companies should be able to pay you 1 cent per hour should you agree to being paid 1 cent per hour.
Would you be willing to say that that is just an opinion that you've arrived at because of your upbringing and your background, and that there's an equally valid opinion that applies over here because of my upbringing, or do you think that it's objectively like even if the universe implodes, minimum wage is a bad idea?
I think that as big of a union that the United States is, I think that minimum wage has no place in it.
What if we had smaller government for each individual state?
Same thing. It.
So if you
I'm
have
I'm
smaller,
talking
there's a state.
population.
Uh, like there's too many people to reasonably believe that minimum wage could be
Yes.
okay, so what if there's like instead of a one large federal government, we were able to, in my dream world, make a lot of smaller governments. Like Kansas has its own federal quote unquote government, and Texas does. Texas makes laws that say they don't have to do minimum wage, and Kansas does.
Okay.
So then you can go to whatever state you want, and then the successful ones will work out, and the unsuccessful ones won't.
Yes.
All these ideas work better with smaller government. And I get so frustrated about talking about this online because everyone online seems to think that small government is a code word for being a racist person because of the Civil War.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So you don't think that the federal government should have as much power as it does?
I would argue that it would be a lot more effective if we could see where our money was going
Oh.
instead of, yeah.
There's so many cultural things that have been ingrained in our society that need to be changed. One of them, and this is why I think minimum wage shouldn't exist, it's because people are de-incentivized to tell other people, their colleagues, how much they make. Their companies don't tell them how much you're making. Some companies have that policy where you're not allowed to talk about that. And that's so stupid. That's only to help the company. Nobody's going to get mad at you if you tell them that you're making 50 cents more than them. They're going to be mad at the company because the company isn't treating them fairly. So instead, they're saying, hey, I'm going to give you an extra $1. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell it. You're doing the same job as them, but I like you more. You're getting an extra $1.
Yeah. Yeah, that is sketchy.
Isn't it?
I disagree with that. I mean, I think there's a point to be made where you could like hurt someone's feelings, I guess.
Feelings?
I don't know.
If okay, my kid can't eat.
I want that on our t-shirt. Your
feelings?
Feelings? Question mark, question mark. That would be our first reviving Discourse t-shirt.
My kid can't eat at night, and because I'm making $7.25 instead of $8.25 like you are, it doesn't hurt my feelings. It makes me mad at my employer that they can afford to pay you more but not me.
Yeah. And again, that's probably because they're so huge. It might just be a random bureaucratic nonsense decision that has nothing to do with actually the product that you're selling or the amount of work that you do. It could just be, hey, this guy was a squeaky wheel in the right place at the right time. We gave him more. And then this guy was a squeaky wheel in the wrong place at the wrong time, and no one heard him screaming into the void because we're so big and disconnected.
I've got a few objective truths then. We should make a list. Do you have Discord pulled up right now?
I do.
All right. Type in objective cultural things that need to change.
Okay.
Do you think that as people are now and not talking about their wages, do you think that it should be the opposite and people should be very open about how much they make?
Yeah. More visibility is always better, right?
So why as a culture is that not the case? Why is it considered rude to walk up to somebody and say, how much money do you make?
That's a good question.
Why is that rude? Because it is.
It's really rude. Yeah, and you phrasing it like that makes me think about it in a whole new way.
Yeah.
Because now I'm kind of leaning towards the other side. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about it.
I said that, and it brought up a few red flags, right? How
Yeah,
much money do you make?
you aren't allowed to ask that.
Exactly.
Why would that be the case? Is that them pulling the wool over our eyes?
Is it? Should that change? Is my question to you, Alexander.
How much money we make? I think that we should be able to talk about how much money we make if the okay, here's the problem. Here's the problem. If the game is rigged, then you don't want to talk about how much money you make, right?
What do you
Because
mean?
the guy who's making less money is gonna know, okay, the game is rigged, so that's the reason that I'm not making as much money. And the guy who is making more money, if he knows the game is rigged, then he knows that he's not getting that because he's better. So he should be kind of ashamed.
Okay. Hmm.
Right? Maybe. We got a comment here.
Do you think it has something to do with wage disparities when you know that charisma has a say in how much you make? So you're able to talk with your bosses or your superiors better, so they appreciate you more, not because you do a better job, but because you're more likable, so you make more money.
Right. See,
Hmm.
I would never tell you how much more money I make than you just because I'm tall and good looking.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
But so you wouldn't, but wouldn't that be in everyone else's best interest to realize that you're making more money from the company we all work for because of things that don't necessarily help said company? Shouldn't that
Yeah.
be disclosed? Shouldn't we, as employees for that company, have a say in how that company's finances go? Not necessarily like a vote, but at least an opinion.
Yeah. Wait a minute. That's a really good point because if you think about the emotional fallout of people discussing how much they make with each other, if that's your deterrent for not discussing it, then that's like attacking a symptom and not the disease,
Yes.
right? So if you aren't able to talk about it, then you never know that this disease is happening in the first place. Ripping the band-aid off might hurt, but are you going to be able to get new ointment in there or something, metaphorically speaking?
Sure.
Oh god.
Does it make is does it cause a supreme dissidence in the workplace?
It could.
What's the worst that could happen if along with your name tag at your workstation, it also says how much money you make? What would that be like?
I guess you might lose people. The company might lose people. That's all I can really think of.
So they would lose people because they're not being fair with their wages, as in
That would punish the company. But wait a minute, no, because now we have run over the ground that there's these companies that have more power than other companies, and they might be the only choice that a person has to try to make money. So it might just kick them when they're down for no reason, like wage disparities. If your charisma or some other factor besides how much work you put out determines how much money you make, and people realize that,
ooh, here
yeah,
Nova 9 says, I think it's better to know, but I also think it would be harder for people to objectively determine why other people make more. Yes.
yeah.
I
What
was
if you?
going to say that.
What if you? Me
What
too. I agree with that.
what if I was going to walk over to someone's desk and it says they're making $2 more than me? I'm going to be a little offended, or am I going to think, well, why are they making more? What are they doing that I'm not? Maybe I should know about that. But that's just me. I know for a fact, probably the majority of people would instead say, why are you making more money than I am? I should be making more money. Give me that more money right now, or else I'm leaving. And that's, I think, the fallacy of being open with how much you're making.
That's what corporations want you to do. Have you ever seen Glengarry Glen Ross?
I don't even know what you just said.
It's a movie. Alec Baldwin comes and gives a speech at a company that sells things.
Mhm.
Like all these salesmen are on the floor, and he gives a really powerful, moving speech that won him an Oscar.
Okay.
And basically, he says a lot of different stuff, like what you're saying right now. Like, you a good father? I don't give a crap. You want to work here? Close the deal, right? And there's two responses that the characters in that movie have to that speech. There's one guy's response where he gets excited, right? He says,
Mhm.
"Oh my gosh, I'm not closing deals. I'm going to try to improve myself to become a better person
Right.
because I want to work here and I want to close." And then there's a second response where people start to have a knee jerk reaction of defensiveness and they want to attack this guy who's making the speech. Who does he think he is? Right? Who
Right.
does this person that is telling me that I need to be better, can I take them down from their position?
Can I bring
And
them to my level instead of me going up to them?
exactly. So that's a really big divide in people's personalities and ways that they judge situations that I think we would really see a lot more starkly if we were to project how much we make. Maybe.
No, no, you're exactly right. That's why it is the way it is. I think we've solved it. Doesn't need to stay that way. In my opinion, no. I don't think that people's feelings matter more than objective facts ever.
Yeah,
I
I picked
I
up
I
on
think
that about you.
I think that there's a difference between rubbing it in someone's face and telling them about it. For instance, if someone was 500 pounds overweight and just gorging themselves at a buffet, if a loved one were to walk up to them and say, "Stop it, you're killing yourself," it's different than them like being at the gym and then someone making fun of them for being fat. So
Yeah.
it should be more like, "Hey, this is how much." They like have a meeting once every 3 months or something, and they say how much they're making. They talk about why it is, and then that's the end of it. It should be as
Yeah.
simple as that, in my opinion.
But what if you discover that the system is rigged, or worse, there is no system? It's just
Good.
random.
Good. Then now you know, and now you know there's a problem that you need to fix.
How can you fix it though as a low level employee if this big company over your head is not?
So just like how we are the government, the people who work for the company are the company. The cashier at the checkout at Albertsons is Albertsons. That's them. That's what they do. So if when you sign on to a company and you work for them, you are part of that company, whether you realize it or you don't. So you have the power. Now it's going to be a very, very small amount of power, depending on how big the company is. You have the power to affect that company in a certain way. If you make an uprising because you're a charismatic person and you get people to think like you're thinking, then it could make your entire store shut down until something gets fixed or until they replace your entire crew, which may be harder than fixing the problem. That's the whole thing. You have to make it so that their option is either kick you out. You have to make kicking you out harder than fixing the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If you find out person X makes $2 more because they have a degree, person Y now knows a degree equals this tangible reward, and this can help you know expectations. Yes, exactly. That's the whole argument.
It's hard to argue with that when you see that. And that thing you just said about making it harder to kick you out.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me a lot of a really disconcerting opinion that I've seen online, especially back during when police brutality protests were
Mm-hmm.
a lot bigger. If you remember, there was a lot of memes and footage of protesters blocking traffic
Yes.
to for the purposes of protesting,
I,
and that
to rant for a second. I saw footage of them blocking an ambulance. That really made me mad. Go on.
okay, so you're the exact person that I'm talking about. Is that these people are trying to say that these two things are separate, right? Them
Mm-hmm.
blocking traffic is not helping their agenda, right?
Yes.
But that is not the purpose of blocking traffic. The purpose of blocking traffic is to make the people around you have to deal with you
Is the
by
part Is the ambulance driver or the person unconscious in the back of the ambulance able to help them?
Well, that's one cherry picked example.
Sure,
That
sure.
I mean, but like the purpose, like people get so upset. Like, hey, if I saw a protest, this is a comment that I saw. If you tried to block my car, I'll hit you with my car
Yes.
because you're going to make me late. They're trying to convey a small amount of the inconvenience that they have at the hands of police officers to you. They're trying to explain that this is how it feels when someone who has more power than you messes up your day. And
Okay.
it's not even comparable. It's not even close, but it's small enough. The fact that that pisses people off is speaks to the issue because those people are getting mad at this small inconvenience that these protesters are doing to them, but they aren't getting mortified by the fact that police are choking people and shooting people who aren't armed. That's what that reminded me of with the
So,
corporation. They're trying to make it harder to get them out of the way so that the issue gets addressed.
hmm,
But
I would.
you disagree with that, so that's a good thing to talk about.
I don't think that their point is getting across the way that they're doing it. It if because there's people they're just yelling, right, saying that you can't go, and then yelling at you, and then holding up a sign instead of saying we're blocking you because this is what it's like. Nobody when they protest, they're trying to change people's minds without having a conversation, and that's not how it's gonna work. They're just gonna get mad and then hate your protest. You're
I
not gonna
thought they
change
were
anyone's
just
mind like
trying to
that.
get the government's attention.
They had the. Are you talking about like the Black Lives Matter movements?
Yeah.
They had the government's attention. They got the president of the United States to say, "Hey, let's talk about it." They
Don't
got
you think that that is part and parcel due to the fact that they block traffic? Do you think
so
they could have gotten the president to chime in if they hadn't been such a nuisance?
no. However, I don't think that they did what they were supposed to do with it because there's not. Has anything changed?
No. There's some cool stuff happening in Chicago. They
Yeah.
make them go through mandatory training uh, every year now,
Oh,
but
that,
in large part, no, there hasn't been a lot of changes. They've tried to make more people wear the security cameras on their vests.
those are awesome.
Those are, I mean, they would be awesome if they would stay on, but inexplicably they keep getting turned off. Don,
Yeah,
they don't
just
know
like
how that keeps happening.
it's crazy. When people are about to get hurt and they say it's unfairly, or like when Jeffrey Epstein goes to commit suicide, conveniently, all footage gets lost.
I saw a headline that said his guards were being charged with something.
Oh yeah,
Isn't that funny?
isn't that funny? Imagine being the guard who's watching over Jeffrey Epstein, and then someone comes to you and says, "You need to turn around now, or we're killing you and your family." And if you say anything, everyone you've ever talked to dies.
Yeah, imagine
Imagine
that.
being that guard. Your choice is then either to do exactly what they say and get arrested for it, or
See,
it's
this is why I think that well, again, on a lot of levels, I identify more with liberals because I would love to be the guy that like is like, you know what, no, and then he sacrifices himself to try to
mhm.
help. That's more of a Christian worldview, I
Yeah.
think, than a liberal worldview.
I,
That's
I
hilarious that they're going to try to charge the guards. What a patsy! What a great patsy! The guard that turned his back on
yeah, right.
him.
there's there's so many cultural things that we've ingrained into our own society that are cancerous that need to change in order for us to become better.
Yeah,
But I don't think anybody knows how to start that conversation. I don't think anybody knows how to start saying, "Hey, you know what? It's probably okay to talk about how much money you make." Or, "Hey, it's probably not such a horrible thing to if your neighbor asks you, "Hey, can you pay for my internet?" Maybe it's not such a bad thing to say yes. I think it is. You don't. Maybe that's something that needs to change.
yeah. Maybe it's not a bad thing to talk about these issues that clearly someone has a vested interest in us not being able to talk about.
Is it somebody has a vested interest in it, or is it just that's how we feel as people? Do we maybe we feel like we shouldn't talk about it? I think the way to change that is depending on the circumstance. Either one, just start doing it and see if people pick up on it, or two, get people together and then talk with them about how it could be helpful or how it could be harmful, and then weigh the positives and the negatives, and then maybe put it to practice and see how it goes. We don't do enough cultural experimentation as a society. We just continue doing what we're doing, and the way things change are through crazy events like people shooting up a church, or through memes. Something happens, we chuckle about it, and then we spread it, like the whole Epstein killed or didn't kill himself meme. That's still getting traction, and people are still talking about it because it's funny and people laugh at it, so they're using that as a tool to keep it in the headlines.
That's true. That's true. Although that's some pretty dangerously liberal thinking for you, Don.
Go
to
on.
be able to say, hey, let's do some experimentation. Let's just not accept the status quo as the status quo. Let's try a new thing, and if it fails, it's fine. And if it works, we're all better off. That's the opposite of conservative.
I wouldn't say that I'm a conservative in most things. I would say that I'm against crazy liberal ideologies where we need to start taxing the rich twice as much as we already are, because that's never going to work.
Yeah.
I'm
or
against
being violent.
Yes, that too.
Which liberals, extremists, left-wing extremists, word of warning, if it comes down to a fight between left-wing extremists and right-wing extremists, I don't think you're going to fare well. I don't think you're going to fare well at all.
Have you seen? There's been memes of. There was a. Do you know what Antifa is?
Yeah,
Antifa.
anti-fascist.
So they go under the guise that they're against fascism, and the way they do that is through their own fascism. So there's a certain.
Right. Okay, elaborate a little bit.
Okay, sure. So
people.
they say that people are treated unfairly because people are the government or certain people in power are using fascist ideals and practices, right? So they're saying change that or we're going to hurt you, which is a fascist ideology. Do what we say or we'll hurt you.
Yeah.
Or you're not allowed to have a job, or et cetera and so forth. So now I'm sure that's a minority. That's like a focused vocal minority of this group. I'm sure that a lot of people who join this aren't necessarily just doing it to be violent. Because it's easy to see a headline anti-fascism and say, "Hey, I don't like fascism. I want to join that."
Yeah.
So anyway, what I was getting at is I've seen videos of the people who do want to be violent just to be violent instead of getting a point across. How they like bring. There was a person who had a nightstick, and he was walking up to someone who didn't have a mask on. The guy pulls up his fists, dodges the nightstick, and then punches him right in the face. That person died in that one hit. Just dead.
Yeah.
Hit the ground, hit his head, and did not get back up ever.
People that don't know very much about violence think that it's the answer. In my experience,
I think violence is lazy. In order to get a political change or socioeconomical change or any other kind of change on a large scale, violence is lazy. Because you're not going to punch people enough to where the country starts thinking differently. It just doesn't work. You have to get a conversation going. You have to change people's minds through conversation. And that's another tool that they don't teach you in school, how to have a conversation.
If only there was some type of program or something that people could view that would teach them a way to bring conversations back to life. If only there was some sort of discourse reviving content that existed.
Maybe someday. Maybe someone will come up with a way to get that out to the masses.
Yeah. We could just revive discourse a little bit.
Maybe put an underscore in between it?
Yeah. Put an underscore in between it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anti-fascist, extremists of any kind are very scary.
Yes,
And I
absolutely.
think that people fall in love with it because they see it. Oh, they got something done. They're making headlines, right?
Hmm.
That person that you can't defeat with words, they hit them with a bike block and now they're silenced.
Yep.
I think that's intoxicating. In the
Sure.
same way that anything that is intoxicating is bad, it's a band-aid over a problem that you actually have.
These people weren't educated on ways to make things that they want to have happen. So they know that if they are able to get a group of their own like-minded individuals and then start hitting people, that something's going to happen. But they don't know why. They don't know how it's going to happen. They're just wanting to skip to the end, and that's why I say violence is lazy, because
Yeah,
they're in order to change the way people think, you have to work very hard at it. You have to put a lot of effort, and you need passion.
and
You don't need
love, you guys.
and
You have
love,
to
sure.
actually care about them.
It's passion. You have to be passionate about wanting this to change. And if you want your neighbor's mind to change, you have to care about your neighbor.
Exactly.
You can't have one without the other.
Caring about your neighbor is so important, and it's so lost in our big swamp society where you can't reach out to people very easily and you communicate over social media as opposed to face, and you can
Yep.
pick up on. So for example, if you're having a conversation with somebody in real life
Hmm.
and you're talking politics with them, and then suddenly you see a single tear drop down their face,
That's powerful.
that is going to change the way that you feel about an issue because you realize,
Yes.
oh crap, that got them to their soul. But
Yes.
if you're just typing, just sniffling your tears away quietly while you type rage into a keyboard, no one's ever going to see that, and no one's ever going to change.
Maybe that's the
Let's
main
read this
reason.
comment.
Yeah, okay. It's intoxicating but have a clear purpose. These people are given a purpose and enemy and know things are black and white. In a world where you are rarely given black and white answers, that's what these groups offer. They tell you it's not your fault, it's X or Y or A. That that makes life easier to walk through. Yeah. It's oversimplification. It's mislabeling. We didn't get to talk about that, but I wanted to. We'll save it for next time. It's cool.
I
So,
love that. It's definitely true because all that you ever want as an American is to have another clear cut bad guy
mhm.
in your life. That's the fantasy that the NRA sells people too. Not to make it too political, but like they're selling this idea that there's an objective bad guy in your yard and you're going to be the only guy that has the necessary tools to get it. I'm holding an imaginary gun in this metaphor.
I think
But
home
I think,
defense is important, but we don't have enough minutes to talk about that.
yeah. Any closing remarks? Thanks for
Um,
having me on again, Don.
I think we're super. We really unlocked something with talking about changing people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be talked about a lot in episodes going forward.
Let's try to focus on that. We're going to be the opposite of that Crowder guy. You know how he puts a sign up that says
Says
"Change my
change.
mind,"
We're
but
gonna
you
change
can't.
your mind.
Yeah, we have a sign that says "Change each other's mind."
Change each other's mind. I like that. Change my mind, and I'll change yours.
Mm-hmm.
See, a little bit of hit though is Steven Crowder is baiting people with the change my mind. He's saying change my mind to get you over to sit with him, and then he's gonna change yours. So it's a bait and switch technique, which I don't necessarily agree with because it always ends up with people yelling.
Mm-hmm.
But
I call it the swaiting bitch.
well, we're almost out of time. Nova 9, you have anything to say before we close it out?
Yeah, thanks for coming, Nova 9.
You're awesome, man.
Yeah, we love everybody that puts in time to participate with us, even though it's kind of boring and hard sometimes to just talk stuff out. You know, anybody that comes through.
Nikki's still here too.
And Nikki Vista has watched the entire duration.
All beginning to end. You're the MVP.
My wife, ladies and gentlemen. This is great. Anyway, thanks for having me on, Don. Again, I really appreciate you, dealing with me and my antics.
Oh yeah. This show's yours. I'm actually gonna give it to you. It's all yours. Have fun.
Aw. That means
All
so
right.
much to me.
Have fun. Bye.
All right, bye.
Alrighty. See you guys later. See you guys next week.